Hey Ottawa, this is your Monday market snapshot for the Ottawa real estate market for Monday, August 12th, 2024. My name is Annalie Rice. I'm a realtor here in Ottawa, Ontario, and every week I bring you the details of what's going on in the Ottawa real estate market. This week's update will include the month-end stats from the Ottawa Real Estate Board, as well as the ones my brokerage produces. And if you want to go back to see what my stats were, obviously they're a little bit different. They were fully explained last week. I don't repeat all of it this week. So let's see what's happening. Okay, so first off, citywide, you can see that the inventory dropped just a tiny bit. We're just shy of that 2,700 active inventory on the market. It was mostly a drop in the townhomes. The detached and condos were just up slightly. The sales this week, as expected, were down from last week. We had the long weekend last, like a week and a half ago, and that has a bit of a tag-on effect over the next week or two, just because fewer conditional sales happen. So we were down by 29 sales this week. It was mostly condos, which again makes sense because they have a longer conditional period, so there would have been fewer conditional sales a couple weeks ago when the long weekend was happening. Yeah, but it was down a little bit across all property types for this week. Okay, so when we look at this as the graphical form of the inventory, we can see the overall inventory definitely had a bit of a, we're past the peak, we're on the way down, but it's not dropping, drastically, as is our active inventory is sort of sitting at that 2,700 mark right now. The other little dashed line there shows you where we were at the same point last year, and you can see that we were only midway up in the increasing inventory last year. And here we are on the downswing on the inventory right now. Not to say that it couldn't climb again in the fall a little bit. It's very possible. But right now we're on a down slope for inventory. And last year we were just at the beginning of this huge inventory climb. Sales are about the same as they were last year. And noted this week, the conditional sales are a fair chunk higher than the sales. So we do expect probably that sales will jump up a little bit next week. This slide breaks down the new listings that we had come to the market this week. We had 392 properties listed on the MLS in the city of Ottawa boundaries this week. And of those, 129 of those, which was 33%, so 1/3 were relisted properties, and 263 or 67% were new to the market listings. And it also shows you the sales there. So you can see that, our peak of listings is also passed. Again, we can and generally will have a bit of an increase in the fall as people start looking at the fall market. But right now, things are pretty steady, pretty standard with the 1/3, 2/3 of relisted properties, although you can see that that's definitely elevated and happens when properties aren't selling, when their inventories are high. Okay, so next up, let's look at sales. So we had 190 sales this week in Ottawa. 22% of those sales happened with no conditions, and 22% happened at or above asking price. You can see that the at or above asking price is definitely on a downward trend. The last couple of weeks, we've had more homes sell with no conditions. I don't really have an explanation for that, but we'll see if it becomes a trend. For sales within the first 7 days, we had 10% of the sales were in the first 7 days. That was 18 properties. And for those ones, the numbers are obviously much higher. So we had 67% sold with no conditions and 83% sold at or above asking price. So there's definitely still competition when a good property comes on, priced right. Sales within the first 30 days on the market, 44% of sales this week was 84 properties. 24% of those sold at with no conditions, and 36 sold at or above asking price. Looking a little bit more into the at or above asking price, we had 42 homes sold this week at or above asking price. 24 of those, which was 57%, sold at asking or just up to 1% over asking, so just slightly. 10 homes sold between 1 and 5%, that was 24% of those sales. And 8 homes sold for more than 5% of their asking price, which represented this week a shocking 19% of those sales. Of those 8 that had sold for more than 5%, 3 were set up with offer dates and times. The highest percent over was 18% over asking, and it was also the same one for the dollar amount. It was 195,500 over asking. It was a fully renovated 1940 built home near Civic Hospital, listed at 1.088 million and sold for 1.283,500. So I think it was just a matter of maybe a couple people really wanted that house, or maybe they listed slightly low. It doesn't look like they listed low or they didn't have an offer set or anything like that. I just think it was a really well done renovation, and they got a little bit more interest than maybe they had thought or planned. Next, let's zoom in and see what's happening across the city. Okay, so first off, in the central urban region inside the Greenbelt, we have the active inventory climbed for detached and towns, was steady for condos, and the sales were down for detached and condos and just up slightly for townhomes. In Canada and Stittsville, we have slight drop, just the slightest drop for detached and towns inventory, and condos up a little bit. And sales were up slightly for detached and down for townhomes, and quite significantly for condos, sorry. In Barrhaven and Riverside South, the active inventory was pretty flat, plus or minus 1 for each, and the sales were down for detached and towns and steady for condos. And in Orleans, very much unlike Barrhaven Riverside South, we actually have quite a drop for detached and towns inventory, and just 1 down for condos. For sales, they were up slightly for detached and pretty steady for towns and condos. So these next 3 charts break it down by property type, so we can see the residential detached. And we have freehold townhomes. And finally, the condominiums. And I will point out here, the condominiums there, you see how many are conditionally sold at 97 across the city, versus only 43 sales that happened this week. So you can definitely expect to see more sales happening, like firm sales in the next week or 2 as those conditional sales go through mostly. Next up, I've got my monthly snapshot, which is just going to be the Ottawa Real Estate Board, and then my brokerage stats. We'll start off with the brokerage stats. Okay, so the brokerage stats break it down into residential, so freehold, and then condominium. And then obviously the middle is the overall. We can see that the number of units sold July 2024 compared to July 2023 were up fairly significantly, 11.5% and 15.7%. Compared to 2023, which we pointed out last week on my charts, shows you the different amounts. The average sale price for residential properties was down 3% from what it was last July, and then the condos were up just slightly. This slide shows us the year-to-date stats, so looking all the way up to the end of July for 2024 versus 2023, you can see that the number of sales were higher for both condos and freehold, so residential, and that the average sale price is up just slightly, so 0.5 for residential and 1.5% for condos if you look at 2023 as a whole up till July and 2024 as a whole. Okay, so these next 2 slides are the Ottawa Real Estate Board stats. The Canadian Real Estate Association pulls the data from the boards and creates these stats and these reports, and then it gets shared. And this is what you'll see, the information that you'll see in the media quoted by the news networks and such. So for July, there was 1,241 units that sold, and that was 13.6% above what we saw in July of 2023. The average it's still 7.1% below the 5-year average for July, and 8.8 below the 10-year average for July. Now those 5 and 10-year averages are obviously affected by the record number of sales that we had in 2020, 2021. So yeah, it's going to take a while to get back up, and admittedly we are in a bit of a slower market. The next little section there is the MLS HPI, Home Price Index benchmark prices. They have a totally different definition, but they are a little bit less prone to volatility of averages. So if you're interested in more details on what these different property classifications are, I did a video on that back in March of this year. So the composite, that's all homes benchmark, is up 0.1% year over year, so very flat. Single family homes, 734, down 0.1% year over year. Row and townhouse, 506, and that does include some condo townhomes in there, is up 3.4%. And apartments, so that's apartment condos, 422, down 0.9%. So relatively pretty flat, less than 1% other than that row townhome price. Okay, and this is the little snapshot that a lot of the realtors share from the Ottawa Real Estate Board. It sort of captures some of that information, tells you how many new listings we had in the month of July, the average benchmark price, days on market. I don't think that is the cumulative days on market because clearly the number of cumulative days is much higher for properties, even though it's selling. The active listings is 3480. Now you can see that from that the area is different than what I share because here we were sitting at about 2,700. So this includes a wider catchment of areas, some different areas of the larger Ottawa area that are outside of the city boundaries. It also has the benchmark for apartments there and how many properties were sold. Okay, so that's the update for this week. I hope you found everything you need. If you have any questions, please leave a comment or get in touch. My details are there. And just a few more weeks of summer, and then everybody will be turning attentions back to school and back to the in-office work for a lot of people for the government. Have a great week.